All right, we are recording. This is Thursday morning coffee and discussion. I have Neuro Coffee in hand, and it is perfect. We also have a very special guest, which is kind of these are very casual, but I gotta introduce this guy because he's the coffee guy. So Dr. Mike Patel is on the call this morning, live from the home studio,
Yep.
And he's been doing I don't know, some sort of self-punishment, I guess would be the way to do this.
So Concept 2, they make the rower and ski erg and they have a bike now. They run these challenges throughout the year. And so they did one in April called the April Fool's Challenge, which was probably aptly named, where April 1st, you row 1,000 meters, April 2nd, you row 2,000 meters, April 3rd, 3,000 meters, etc., to the 15th, where you row 15,000 meters. And so I actually got my kids to do it. So 3 of my kids, and actually my youngest did it. We just did it as a factor of 10 lower. He's 5. So he did 100 meters, 200 meters, 300 meters. But I got my kids to do it. And then they basically were like, well, you do it too, Dad, but you have to do double. So I would do 1,000 meters on the rower, and then I would do 1,000 meters on the ski erg. And it was cool until like day 5. And days like 10 through 15 were just, because I would generally have to do it like after they would go to bed. So at like 8:30, I would start on the ski erg, and then I would row 12,000 meters, then I'd go and I'd row the rower. So yesterday was day 15, 15,000 meters on the erg, 15,000 meters on the ski erg, and I'm not gonna row today.
I would say it's kind of pushed me towards stuff that I wanted to do before this was happening, right? Like I needed a better presence with online type work, right? Shooting videos, content. You didn't really see my face, in all my Instagram and Facebook stuff, because I just didn't like doing that stuff. And now I'm videoing in my face every day. And so I think I've developed a good comfort with all that stuff.
But yeah, I think for me, one of the coolest things was having to be creative with my workouts and exercises. Being here and being quarantined kind of shows you what kind of the raw stuff that you need, and forced me to really be creative on how I can use those raw materials to create exercises that were meaningful and intentional.
So I had some antique furniture that I got, and it just happened to be enough height to put a barbell on and do squats off of. It was also heavy enough to do RDLs on. And then, we tossed in some overhead laundry basket squats, heels elevated, like you said, man, you get creative.
Finding different ways to communicate, even though we can't really be physically there. Mm-hmm. And then aside from that, like also understanding what's essential and what isn't, not only in what we do as practitioners, but what we do in everyday life.
I totally agree. I think that this is, again, it's sort of like a forced circumstance, but it also allows you to recognize some of those things that, this is really important, or this is really what I want to do, or there are so many opportunities available right now. And granted, I think everybody's feeling the stress. I don't think there's any question about that. So I don't want to negate, the downside.
Absolutely.
But yeah, looking at this from an opportunistic standpoint, I think is really powerful.
I want to just introduce and just trying to gain a good network of folks and learn as much as I can about what everybody does and invest my time, which I obviously have now, into gaining knowledge in this realm.
What are you doing? What are you doing yourself to organize this for yourself so you can
retest
and understand?
Like
physically, like what are you doing to capture this information? So like, are you just a note taker? Are you using some kind of system? Are you using some kind of an app? What are you doing? There's going to be a lot of people that are in your shoes that don't understand like the best way for them to go about capturing information.
Right now, yes, I'm a note taker. Really, I like pen and paper. So that's mostly what I use right now, or I try to do it through video. What was that? Sorry.
Aren't you a little young for pen and paper?
Yeah.
Here, can you touch on a little bit about narrow infrasternal angles? And you mentioned a few times, I may have interpreted this wrong, but how the pull of the diaphragm kind of changes or inverts. Now, the way
It doesn't invert. It just descends farther. So you have a tall, skinny tube instead of a short, fat tube, right?
Yeah.
And so to create the internal pressures that are required for control of position, it has to descend farther to create that pressure. Okay. And
Okay.
so people that are narrow forever till death do us part. So there's nothing you're going to change about that because it is a structural adaptation. It would be like to change somebody from a narrow to something else means that you could manipulate their height at will, right?
Okay, yeah.
I see
the way you zoomed out.
So there's structural things that you can identify, and then you have to train them, and you have to say, okay, we're making really, really good progress with this, but we can't make a change with that. So let's emphasize what they're really, really good at. If we're honest with people, we say, we're here to improve your son, daughter, or your whatever athleticism you have. We're here to improve you. So we're gonna make you better, but we can't make the comparison between anyone else.
I've pictured it as well too. Just since we're on narrow ISA, is that going to influence the elasticity of the lungs? Obviously the chest wall, but I mean the lungs as well too. Do you feel that structure actually genuinely gets stretched so compliance changes laterally? When cueing with doing some of the respiratory interventions that they think about, from an inhalation perspective, above and beyond the opening, that it needs time for it to open, that you have to kind of go slow to create the lateral expansion, whatever position they're putting them in. Exactly.
It's kind of like a yes/no question, but if you kind of
so let's take a step back here for just a second, okay?
Totally unable to answer a yes/no question.
Say what?
Totally unable to answer a yes/no question.
You step off into a box into like a depth drop. If you could drop down deeper in space and manage that position, and that was
like a deeper squat.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then that was a representation of you managed Golgi tendon inhibition to such a degree that it allowed you to get into that position.
Okay, I'm cool with that. Give me another perspective. That would be, well, it isn't the only thing that's going on, right? So now give me something else. Give me another layer of thought process in regards to what's happening there.
So it would be eccentric elongation of muscular tissue that would allow that position. Be just management of guts.
Give me another layer of thought process. What else is happening?
Bones are bending. Bones are changing position. They're warping. Yeah.
Okay. Are there any other connective tissues that are getting loaded? So right away, you've given me 3 or 4 different perspectives as to what's going on. So right now, your filtering system for what happened on that depth jump is now different.
Yeah.
Because you have more perspectives that you've brought into play.
Right. Okay.
So I have to use the observations that I have available to me. I have to be able to measure the things that I can measure that are useful. So just being able to measure stuff doesn't make it useful.
When we see PNF techniques being used for improving hip flexion, do you think the mechanism of why it's working is less about changing or inhibiting tonicity of the hamstrings versus changing counter nutation for where airflow is going?
Did you get the outcome that you wanted based on your intent? That's step one.
Yeah. Okay.
You just don't know. You just don't know.
It doesn't matter why. Yeah.
Well, it's not that it doesn't matter. It's like everything matters. And so we have to stop giving extra credit to certain elements. The reality is yeah, is there neurophysiological? Absolutely, because I know I've got an active nervous system. I'm assuming this person is still alive and breathing, right? Is it pressure gradients? Absolutely. Is it the viscoelastic behavior? Absolutely. If I don't create strain on a muscle, I don't produce force. Mm-hmm. I can increase range of motion by creating a gradient, but I can't lift anything heavy.
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
I actually have to restrict the gradient to lift heavy things. So there's a big difference right there in the ability to access ranges of motion under load, right?
Mm.
You ever have somebody that can squat really, really deep, but you put a barbell on their back and they can't get past parallel? Happens all the time, right?
Yeah.
Because if they go below parallel, they have to create the gradient that will not allow them to stand back up. So they never go there. It's like people that do half push-ups. The reason they do half push-ups is because they can't go into that zone in that lower half of the push-up because they'll never get back up. Because the minute they release pressure, they don't have enough force production anymore because the gradient was designed to access motion, not to produce force. They're not the same.
Okay.
So basically,
How about
there's
the guy?
multiple ways that an intervention might be successful, and there's multiple interventions that would also be successful, I think is
And you
another
have
way to look
no
at it.
idea. You have no
Yeah.
idea why it works, right?
Yeah.
So here's how you get better as a practitioner. You do stuff, you pay attention to what happens, and then you do that over a period of years, and then you start to recognize certain behaviors are related to certain interventions. And more often than not, if I do this, I get that. And then you do more of that, and you're still going to be wrong 26% of the time, but 74% of the time you're going to be right. And then that's how you get better. So your probabilities get better. It's not that you know what's going to happen, because you don't.
I have nothing but the best of intentions. I want to provide the best service I possibly can for every one of my clients. And because of that, I don't always listen to the evidence. It should guide, not dictate, educate, not mandate, direct, not decree, reinforce, not enforce.
Right. There you go. Love that. Love that. I think it's brilliant. Your arms look good today.
Oh, it's the shirt. It's the shirt. It is. Probably a size too small. Like acute muscle injuries. Like how are you looking at that in regards to like
An acute muscle
how
injury?
you muscle, like a muscle strain?
Okay.
Grade 1 to 2, not full rupture. We're not talking about tendon rupture, but like legit muscle contractile tissue area.
Yeah.
Muscle belly stuff. How are you looking at that and the management standpoint early on? So like acutely, and how does that affect the pressure and the ability for the muscle to work? And what are you looking to adjust with that?
And so the management strategy is really not all that different, right? I want to make sure that I have excursion, right? So when you think about, okay, what is it going to take for this tissue to recover? It needs movement. It needs blood flow. So if I have a restriction in my movement capabilities, that would imply that I have tension, which reduces blood flow. So that's why I want to make sure that I'm restoring full excursion of my rotations, right? So full excursion from internal to external rotation, which implies that I have full excursion of breathing, right? Some of your manual strategies, what do? They alter the shape of the structure, right? The protein structure can change shape, and that will allow access to oxygen, nutrients, et cetera, that promotes the natural healing.
And like, that muscle can be in concentric orientation versus a muscle being in eccentric orientation prior. Are
Right.
those going to adjust like how that blood flow gets to those areas?
Let's just think process. What's my intention? What is my goal? What am I trying to achieve? Right? I want to make sure that this thing has everything that it needs to recover. I don't care what methodologies, I don't care if you stick needles in people. I don't care if you rub them. I don't care if you use an elbow. I don't care if you use a thumb. I don't care if you take a breath. I don't care if you activate a muscle. The goal is to make sure that whatever you're trying to protect and promote the recovery process has the ability to do that. So it doesn't matter to me what tool you're using, as long as the tool is effective under the circumstance. This was fun. I'm gonna try to keep doing this as much as I can. Schedule's gonna go back towards normal starting next week, but I'll try to do this again next week. I really enjoy this, and I hope it's useful for everybody. At least you get to decompress a little bit, you get a little bit of coffee in you, and so it's fun for me.